But that has been very encouraging. And I think working at that, making young people understand that they, as they take their future in their hands, that women should not stand back, that they should vie for those positions. I think that this is, as for people in my age group, obviously it's been a recurring theme throughout, where there's always been this fight to assert, because of our patriarchal society, to assert that women are capable, women can do the job, etc., etc. So I think the messaging within the voter education campaigns of the IEC should enhance that. We should try and shape that within that younger generation and or throughout, that people must stand for office, because if they don't stand, the chances of them getting elected, of course, becomes problematic.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Advocate.
Good afternoon.
Just three quick ones.
Quick ones.
Starting with on the queue management.
Yes.
Sometimes during those elections, we experience various natural, the weather patterns. So people stand in the queue waiting to get in, get rain, soaking, and then they leave. Other areas which is extremely hot, faint in the queues, etc. What would your views be about the, and it will be a cost, of course, if you have to bring in coverings. So what will your views be about how do we deal with those? Because it's also a disincentive for people to turn back and say, no, I'm not interested in voting. The second thing is, you are saying that technology is the backbone of the Electoral Commission. And, but you also say that there's room for improvement. Would you then say that improvement that's not there affects the IEC in the execution? And what would your contribution be in that one? And then you say with your cross-cutting skills, but you are not good at maintenance. Please explain that briefly. Thank you.
The weather. I think the IEC goes into a lot of trouble to try, even with your by-elections, to read the weather, etc. And of course, with global warming and all of that, it becomes more difficult to predict. But where there is leeway, if we have to, for instance, look at elections has to happen within 90 days within that calendar when they are due. So in that 3 months, you need to try and choose the best option, that you look in the country to see where the weather is and whether you can use the best time. So obviously, some elections we've had in May when it was winter, and maybe for us here in Gauteng, winter just means it's cold and you can wear a coat. But if you are in Cape Town, it's likely to be soaking wet with those winds that can basically blow you away. It's a difficult one, and indeed, it will be a money factor to look at where and how you can protect people from that particular challenge. But there is room for minimizing, I would say, voting stations that are in tents and so on, to look for more permanent type structures, to use building, collaborate with other government organizations, private enterprises, so that we can use their facilities. That will give us a bit more leeway to accommodate, that we don't have people exposed to the weather. But again, there are more, there's centers that are more resourced, and then in rural areas, maybe you don't have that option. I think, in essence, it goes back to, can we really just improve how we process this queue? Can we try and make it easier, or shorter at least, for people to have to come to the voting station so that we can be more observant. The queue walker, as they called it, are supposed to go up and down the queue and find people that are frail and or in need with children and so on. So those kinds of things can be improved, but I don't think that there's an absolute solution on a day, even though you planned as you did, when we have a storm that happens, etc. So that is unfortunate, but we have to look at how better that we manage the queues and predict. Maybe just quickly to say, I'm not sure how many more VMDs they had, but if one can imagine that it could be quicker, and this is just, personally what I'm in my head responding to you think, that you can have one as people enter that can already find them, and, then as they enter, they already know where they go. Maybe they get a reference number that's on the roll. I'm just speculating. But anything to make it quicker can work. And yes, there is going to be a financial impact, but let's see where else we can cut our shirt so we can look at elements like that. Where the technology impacts the election delivery mechanism, I think is for me, it's evident it does. We now rely on the VMD, but we're still running parallel. We still have a printed voters roll, and that you can find a person coming to the voting station on a printed voters roll. Now that we have confined people to vote wherever they have told the IEC they will be voting with the Section 24, it makes that even easier because this is where they are supposed to vote. It's on the voters roll, it's on the VMD. The VMD, of course, enhances that we can send the results and the stats quicker. In the olden days, we needed to mark off as people, the numbers, 10 people before 10 or 70 before 9 or whatever. But these days, that supplementary role that the technology plays, it's not the only facility or the means we have to still deliver credible and free and fair elections. There is still a duality in the way we do it. So I don't think that even where it fails, and it has not had abject failure, there's just been incidents here and there, that it really and truly takes away from the freeness and fairness of the election. I think that it's held up, but indeed, even those small incidences needs to be addressed, they need to be corrected, and from my understanding, it is not been large scale. It has been explained well. If I listen to the CEO for the glitches that's been there, it is things that can be corrected. You had a question about my cross-cutting skill and the fact that I'm not a maintenance person. I think what I'm trying to say there is that my focus has always been on, I go and I start something, I enhance it, I build it out, and almost if it reaches an element of, it can run on its own. It's where I then look to the next challenge. I don't believe in me putting myself forward for this post, that the Electoral Commission, certainly as the Commission has reached that stage as yet. I think we are now on the cusp of having a new electoral system. That is going to really and truly require attention from and a response from the Electoral Commission. Going forward, we've got the local government elections coming up, anywhere from, I think it's November 2026, so a 3-month gap there. And that too, although not impacted by the changes now that the electoral review panel is busy with, but still, it is a lot of work to get to that point. There are always enhancements, as I've said, that we have to make, and I believe that I'm competent, I'm able, I have a lot of energy, I'm blessed with good health, and I can make a difference. Chief Justice, no, thank you very much, but to thank you and the panel for the opportunity. It is a very good feeling and, must I say, an honor just to have reached the stage. So I thank you for your attention and allowing me to be my normal, long-winded self. Thank you very much.
No, it was all interesting stuff.
Thank you.
But thanks to you for making yourself available.
Thank you, I appreciate.
You
Thank
will
you to the
get the
support
results in
staff
due
that
course.
has been excellent in guiding us to this point. I appreciate the efforts. Thank you.
afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, CJ.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm fine, thanks. First, let me apologize for keeping you waiting. We are running way behind time, but that's the nature of these things. Sorry anyway. We have the public protector, Advocate Galeka, Mr. Nissen, who chairs the Human Rights Commission, and Advocate Supanya Mukhali, who chairs the CGE. I'm the chairperson. We will get right to it. I will ask you questions naturally, and then if my colleagues have anything they wish to raise with you, they'll do so. But are you a South African citizen?
Yes, CJ, I'm a South African, born and bred in Soweto. Speaks 8 official languages out of 11, plus French.
Whoa. 8 through South African, and the cosmopolitan one is that.
Yes.
So, do you hold any position, a prominent position that is in any political party?
No, CJ, I don't.
I'm asking these questions because those are the requirements of the Electoral Act. What academic qualifications do you hold?
I hold a master's degree from Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., and my master's is in library and information science. I did my first degree at the University of Zululand, then proceeded to Washington, D.C. when I got the scholarship from the UN.
What was your first degree?
It was also on library and information science.
You're a librarian by
Yes, I'm a
profession.
librarian.
All right. What scholarship did you get? Did you say the
United Nations? It was called UNEPSA. It was a specific.
I remember
You
it,
remember
yes,
for South
yes.
Africans? Yes, it was a UNEPSA.
And not just anybody got that scholarship, as I understand it.
No,
you
it's
had
just
to be,
for South Africans.
Yes.
Yeah.
and not just any South African for that matter, a South African, an excellent South African. Okay. You have been nominated by a few people, and one of them describes your career as one spanning a vast expanse of fields in election administration, technical advisory, conflict resolution, stakeholder engagement, and democracy support. Can you just tell us concisely exactly what you've done in your career that you think qualifies you for this position?
Thank you, Chairperson. At the tail end of CODESA, it was quite clear that South Africa needs to go into elections. And at that time, I was attached to an institution called ACCORD, African Center for Constructive Resolution of Disputes. We were involved in peace-building initiatives in KwaZulu-Natal. You'll remember in 1994, KwaZulu-Natal was the killing fields of South Africa. So as ACCORD, we were involved in trying to train or provide capacity building to political parties and to civil society organizations in an effort to bring peace in KZN. When the election time came, ACCORD seconded me to the interim Electoral Commission, the interim IEC, where I continued providing capacity building to electoral staff, monitors, and political parties in preparation for the elections. After the elections, I went back to ACCORD, and in 1998, I became a full-time staff of the Electoral Commission. Now, this is the one which was set up by the 1996 Constitution. I became a full-time staff member in KwaZulu-Natal, and I was involved with what is called stakeholder management, meaning that any other stakeholder who needs to go through to the IEC has to talk to me. I also was involved in setting up what we call party liaison committee, which helped us to engage political parties in KwaZulu-Natal. And these structures were very good because in the sense that at the beginning there was a lot of animosity between the IEC and some of the parties. But over the time, because we are having these regular meetings with party liaison committees, there were, we became, we built a rapport between political parties and the IEC. I remember when I resigned from IEC, some of the parties wrote to Dr. Pam not to release me, because that's how I had, how I have worked very well with political parties. So also I was involved with the civil society organization, and my skills in terms of conflict resolution also came to play a role in KwaZulu-Natal, because there were always conflicts. I also worked with Amakosi, and at that time they were refusing to give space to other political parties, so I had to go out there and meet Amakosi and talk to them about the importance of ensuring that we level the playing field for everybody. Everyone has a right to participate. And, after the 1999 elections, I felt confident enough to meet the international community. So I left South Africa in 2001 to go and work in in Namibia for the SADC Parliamentary Forum. And as you will see in my CV, I was an elections program officer, and I was in charge of coordinating election missions for the SADC parliamentarians, and also drafting, the protocols for what constitute free and fair elections. And then from the SADC Parliamentary Forum, then I got invited by different international organizations. I went to Nigeria. President Carter was coming to Africa, and they asked if I could organize a mission for him. Unfortunately, because of the first Iraqi war, I couldn't. And then from then on, I was on the UN roster of experts. So as you will see in my CV, I'm moving from country to country. It's because I get deployed by the UN. Whenever the need arises, they will call me and ask me, can I go to a certain place? And I've always went there and tried to work as hard as I can to fly the South African flag, because, South African IEC is well known for having, good elections. In fact, a few weeks ago, I was joking with the current chairperson of the Electoral Commission and say, guys, if you mess up, you mess up for us, people who work in the international space. So the IEC better, do its work properly. So I do a lot of work for the UN as a technical advisor, either to run elections. Let me make an example. In 2010, I was asked by the UN to go to Nigeria to go and provide technical support for their 2011 elections. I mean, there was a few months left. I got there, and based on my experience from other countries, I was able to work with the Nigerian Electoral Commission, but none of them knew anything about elections at the commission. I mean, the Board of Commissioners, nobody, except some of the staff have run elections. But the 2011 Nigerian elections were slated as the best elections. We were working with 73.5 million voters. Just about 50% showed up for the elections, and we were very impressed because we thought it was a difficult elections, a lot of violence, but we managed to do a good job. And as you can see, then I've been moved to other countries to go and provide technical assistance to different. When I'm in South Africa, I run what is called corporate governance elections, such as I think in 2021, I did the government employee pension fund, and because of post office problems, we introduced, with the company I work with, MCA, we introduced the electronic voting for pensioners. And the majority of them voted using electronic voting.
What role did you play there specifically?
At MCA.
I'm trying to test if you have any, I acknowledge the vast technical experience you have. I'm looking for leadership and governance experience.
You mean at MCA or anywhere?
At MCA?
At MCA, I was the presiding officer running those elections. So I sort of sat down with an ICT person and told the person, what is it that I want out of the system? So as an elections a practitioner, so he would he would do the way I wanted to do. And then they were able to vote. In other, like, let's take, for instance, in Nigeria, I was an acting chief technical advisor. This is the most senior position a person who runs in election can hold. The CTA had just, the chief technical had just resigned. That's why I was called to step in and assist the Nigerian Electoral Commission. At CTA level, of course, you observe, you run the elections, but also you interact with the government. And we had what we call steering committee meetings, which were chaired by the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Finance and the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Professor Jiga. So we had those two senior people. So we had to make sure that whatever we reported to them, you know, it's correct, so that they can take decisions. We as UNDP were running what is called a basket fund. You know, we had a number of countries putting money into our fund so that we can assist the Nigerian Electoral Commission. The total budget of those elections was $88 million. That's the total budget we're working with as UNDP and the Electoral Commission of Nigeria. So the elections are huge in Nigeria. I mean, we were running with 74.5 million voters. Currently, Nigeria has got about 95 million voters. So it's a big operations, and we had to make sure that you know, they are successful. If you go to the annals of those elections, they will tell you those were the best elections Nigeria has ever had. And I'm proud as a South African to have run a flag, a South African flag. I could have stayed in Nigeria because the UN had given me what we call fixed-term contract, you know, 5-year contracts, renewable. But on the 26th of August 2011, our office was bombed by Boko Haram. And I got so scared, and I served a 3 months notice, and I didn't go back, and started looking for opportunities in other countries as well, based on where the UN placed me. So election is what I've been doing for the past 30 years. I also do training. I mean, as late as last week, I was training stakeholders in Malawi on conflict resolution strategies, you know, mitigating election-related violence. So I do training of conflict resolution. I also do training of what is called bridge, building resources in elections, building resources in democracy, governance, and elections. That is bridge. So these are 17 modules, which each and every staff of an electoral commission must try to have. It's a curriculum which you can go to Russia with the same curriculum and start training. So I am currently I'm an election, what they call a workshop facilitator. It's not very high, but we do have experts in South Africa. We have Tomsi Dlamini, she's a South African, and Rushni Nakade. These two South Africans are experts. So they are people who are very respected in this area of bridge training. So I do also training as well. I do, you know, technical advice, and I also do research. I had a situation where I was asked by the African Union to go and do an assessment of a commission, because it's like I won't mention the country. The citizens were not happy, so the African Union asked me to go there, and I met the stakeholders. I mean, met and talked to stakeholders. You know, at the end of the day, we had to recommend that the whole commission must step down. And the whole commission did step down, because based on our recommendation, I mean, the African Union took the report to the president of that country, and then the whole commission had to resign. I think the sad thing about it is because this is the same commission which I was responsible for inducting. When they first became commissioners, the UNDP asked me to go and induct them, you know, train them on commission work. So it was sad, because these are my friends, you know, but a job is a job. I had to ask them I had to recommend for the dissolution of the commission.
All right. I see that your work has taken you to troubled countries such as Palestine and
Yes.
Pakistan. What lessons
Oh.
did that experience give you?
In Palestine, I was asked by the South African government to accompany a delegation of observers to Palestine. That was the 2006 elections, which were won by Hamas with a landslide. But because of international interference, Hamas couldn't take over and govern Palestine. So Pakistan, the Commonwealth, I'd get different organizations asking me to accompany them to observe elections in different countries. And of course, when I was at SADC Parliamentary Forum, I worked in 14 countries, so I was forced to go to these countries. And when I came back from the SADC Parliamentary Forum, I was talking with Dr. Bam, and I said, my little experience working in these different countries, we as commissions, we are not talking to each other. Everybody's doing whatever they like. We are not sharing resources. We could be doing staff attachment and so on. And Dr. Bam advised, so what do you suggest? Write a proposal. So I wrote a proposal, and then we put a cost to it. And in 2003, there was the biggest conference in Africa of all election administrators in South Africa. And out of that, there was an association which was born, and which is a player now in election democracy space. So basically, CJ, every time I go to a country, when I come back, I ask myself, what is it have I, supported? How have I supported the people of the country? Even today, last month I was in Sierra Leone to train staff in Bridge, and every time they introduce me as the South African who set up party liaison committees. Because when I got to Sierra Leone in 2006, the commission was not engaging electoral stakeholders. They didn't know how to engage electoral stakeholders. So I remember at home in KwaZulu-Natal, and throughout South Africa, of course, it's in the Electoral Commissions Act, party liaison committees. So I, advised the commission, why don't we set up party liaison committees, which helped us to engage the political parties in Sierra Leone, which are the key stakeholders. I remember President Baiko Roma saying, if elections, if the way things are being done now, we will accept the outcome of the results, because we had encouraged transparency, engagement, talking to the people, setting different forums to engage stakeholders. So basically, whatever I've learned in South Africa, I've been able to use it all over Africa where I've been working.
With this deep knowledge and experience in electoral science, in your assessment, what challenges does the IEC have to contend with, and what would you bring to bear to the position if you get it to benefit and improve things over there?
I think as IEC, there's a problem of voter turnout. I think I want to commend the IEC for being able to register 27 million in the last elections, but CJ, you'll remember only 16 million turned up. For what happened to the 11 million? And also, CJ, I think I heard the statistician general saying that there are 10 million eligible South Africans who didn't register. So now we are talking about 21 million missing South Africans who we have to bring into the electoral space. And I'm thinking we have to learn from what other countries are doing. For example, in Ghana, if you go to the IEC in Ghana, there are two commissions, this IEC, the Electoral Commission of Ghana, and the Civic Education Commission. Now, if you look at the South African Commissions Act, in the pure sense, it doesn't give IEC the mandate to do civic education. It only says voter education. But IEC has done well
What's the difference?
Civic education has to do with the governance, the different levels of governance, the representatives, the parliament, and so on. But voter education has to do with when you get to the voting station, exactly what you're expected to do, you know? So those two, but even though IEC has ventured into what we call the money for voter education, for civic education, has not been given to the Electoral Commission of South Africa. So it's unfunded mandate. So, but IEC has done very well. I mean, with more money, I'm sure we could increase voter turnout, but IEC doesn't have that money because we would then have to learn in Ghana the civic education, you know, because in Ghana since 1992 elections, the voter turnout has been over 70%. It's only last year when it came to 64%. And there are all other issues. And I think as well, the voter turnout has not much to do with the IEC per se. It's the situation around, it's the lived experiences of the citizens of a country, you know. How happy are the citizens? Is their service delivered? So this impacts negatively on the IEC work. But we need, this is what we are operating in. You know, there's a term called the VUCA complex. It's a military complex, which means we live in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. Nothing is predictable. So we as election practitioners have to stand up to the occasion and see how we can improve that. And also, while we are still talking that, South Africa, I was looking at the statistics, 33% of the population in South Africa is youth. And our youth in South Africa is a mobile youth. Most of the young people in South Africa, they use mobiles. They are more technologically savvy than us, older people. So I was just thinking that sometime in 2014, I met with IEC, and I asked them if they would think about electronic voting. I think at that time the commission was not ready, but I'm happy now that the commission is talking about electronic voting. I just want to allay fears of the South Africans. There are different forms of electronic voting. When I approached IEC in 2014, I was attached to a multinational company doing purely electronic voting all over the world. And at that time, we had done 3.6 billion votes, electronic votes around the world. So I thought, since IEC is a trailblazer, IEC is the most respected organization around the world, let me take this technology back home and see if, what will happen. And I want to say,